da 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 da. So right there, da 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 da, you have to stop. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Travis Bowman. Welcome back to another episode of FingerStylish, a YouTube series which focuses on primarily a lot of fingerstyle techniques and tunes, and we're going to analyze those tunes, possibly learn something, and discuss why I feel it's historically important to this style of guitar playing. Now, it's a rainy day here today, so I'm in my pajamas, and we're going to play some Leo Kottke. Now, we're going to start with a guitar that's standard pitch. We're going to be in standard tuning, and we're only going to be focusing on 2 chords on this episode. That may sound pretty easy, but there are 2 words that I said that will remind you that it's not going to be easy, and those 2 words are, of course, Leo Kottke. This is a very Leo Kottke tune, to say the least. And if you're asking what do you mean by that, I mean that Leo Kottke has a very syncopated style that's all his own. You'll rarely ever hear another guitar player sound quite like Leo Kottke, unless, of course, he or she is pretty good at playing one of his tunes. Now, today we're going to be doing William Powell. I think it was first recorded on the 1989 album My Father's Face, and it's a favorite of his to play in live concerts to this day. So, the 2 chords in question here. We're in standard tuning. The first one's going to be just an E major chord, but we're going to use our pinky to put it right here on this F sharp, or C sharp rather, on the 2nd fret of the B string. That's chord number 1. The second chord, it's a B7, but not quite like this. It's a B7, and we're going to still keep that pinky there on that 2nd fret C sharp, and try to use our thumb, if we can, to wrap around the neck for this F sharp up here on top. Now, if that doesn't work, some people have trouble with their thumb reaching over the top. Leo certainly does not. He uses a lot of tunes with that thumb wrapping around the top of the neck to grab some of those bass notes. I myself consider to be somewhat blessed with the hitchhiker's thumb, meaning I can point them that way. I kind of double jointed in my thumbs. I'm pretty sure that's the same case with Mr. Kottke. You'll notice that if you watch some videos of his right hand. I've got pretty big hands myself, so I really have no trouble reaching around, especially for something like this F major. I can grab that with my thumb. Here's what we're going to be doing. Just this little part, the first part of this tune, William Powell by Leo Kottke. Now, I'm going to do my best to explain what's happening here, but it's a lot. There's a lot going on. If I could choose one word to describe it, it's got to be syncopation. There's so much going on with the left hand and the right hand working together to create that chunky, almost dirty, gritty sound. And if I just played that without any of that syncopation, just played it straight through like I was finger picking any other song, you know, like Dust in the Wind, it would sound like this. And that's a good place to start, so you at least get the pattern before you worry about the chunk, because that syncopated, chunky sound is probably the most difficult part. To be honest with you, I've shown this to a lot of world-class guitar players that just never got into Leo Kottke's music. Even people that got into stuff like Merle Travis and Chet Atkins and Tommy Emmanuel and the like, they often have trouble with this because it's just so different and they've never really played the guitar like this before. Something so simple can be so strange and difficult. So let's go over the pattern first, and we'll worry about the chunk later. So we're just going to finger pick this thing, so your right hand gets used to what it's going to have to do with the pattern. So with a lot of Leo Kottke's music, what he does is that he'll take the melody, which is usually going to be on the mid strings and the treble strings, and then he kind of adds some sort of I wouldn't call it a bass line, but there's bass notes that are playing their own type of melody in a sense. So what the bass is doing is that's the gist of it. And I'll go ahead and tell you that I'll put the link for the tab for William Powell that's going to be on the Stropes website. It's John Stropes, who does incredible tab work. He's one of the leading transcribers for all things fingerstyle music. He's got a lot of respect and a lot of accuracy with his work. And I would suggest if you're going to spend money on a tab for that, I would do it on John Stropes' website. That being said, going forward, I'll let you know that I learned this completely by ear because I was so obsessed with Leo's music. So while this may not be 100% accurate, I'm fairly confident that it's pretty damn close to what Leo Kottke would play. Or at least I can make it sound like it, you know, and that's what we're going for, is we're trying to not necessarily learn the song, but we want to learn his technique, because I think it's really important to the history of all things fingerstyle guitar music. Still to this day, it's unlike any other guitar player. Once again, that bass. See, I'm already trying to get back into it. There's muting that's going on in between my two hands, and that's left hand muting and a little bit of that right hand muting. And the right hand I'll get to in just a second. But we have to basically just barely lift up our chord shape that we have here to where it's... And this pattern that I'm doing with my right hand, so far what the bass is doing, I've got these two fingers, my thumb and my index, and I'm just going back and forth, and my index finger doesn't leave the D string. So my thumb in itself is doing its own pattern. How many times have you done this? All you have to do is just add that D string in between those two notes. And then switch your chord shape. And I know what you're thinking, that sounds absolutely nothing like this song, William Powell. And you're right, but we're getting the pattern down. Leo Kottke is famous for saying, as far as fingerstyle patterns, you learn them and then you forget them. And you know the melody. The melody is one of the most simple things ever. So if we add that together, we get this. It's almost kind of like putting Lego pieces together. And I know that's probably not a good analogy for what I'm trying to convey here, but some pieces stack together and some pieces don't. You know, think of it almost like, you know, Tetris. Some pieces fit with other pieces. It's the same thing. Like you have to visualize it. I'm stacking pieces on top of each other, and that's what I mean with the right hand, is that sometimes you play the D string with, you know, your pinched notes, like that's a big 3-string pinch, meaning I'm just going to play all 3 of these strings, D, G, and B. And I'll try to get a good angle so you can catch this right hand here. Switching chords. Now you got to look at my right hand. I wouldn't claim to be in the classical position, you know, up here like this, but my hand is kind of curved this way. Like if I was just going to finger pick it. If I was going to finger pick Dust in the Wind, my hand would be kind of out in that position. What I've done with my right hand to really kind of try to emulate that Kottke sound as much as I possibly can is a little bit dangerous, meaning instead of being out here in this comfortable position here, my hand kind of comes towards the guitar, almost to the point to where I'm resting my palm on the face of the guitar about right here. And so that gives me, you hear that pop? That's the Kottke poppy sound. And that, in combination with occasionally lifting up pressure with this left-hand chord shape. So I would first focus, I know we did the whole chord shape, but just work these two fingers to get it used to being able to do this pop, and we'll just go between the two chords. And then add your left hand muting, because the rhythm of the song goes da 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 da. So right there, da 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 da, you have to stop, da 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 da, and it's very short and jabby like that, da 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 da. Like that. So rhythmically in itself, it's a little bit, it's not that complicated, but it does take some getting used to, some trial and error to find that rhythm. I had a guitar teacher for about a year and a half, and he had a master's degree in jazz. And quick random fact, and then we'll get back to the song. There was a Taylor Swift Taylor Guitars model that we had up at the guitar store that was for sale. You know, it was like a baby Taylor. And I walked up to him before my lesson. I said, "Hey man, have you seen this new baby Taylor from Taylor Swift?" And he said, "Who's Taylor Swift?" It was no joke. He had no idea who she was. That's how into jazz he was. And this must have been right around the time where she was like really, really famous, you know, 2009-ish, 2010. He was very adamant on me using this pseudo-classical position to where my hand is, you know, curved outward. But of course, I didn't do that. What I was used to, teaching this Kottke stuff to myself on my own, to get that sound, I tried everything that I could, and the main thing that I tried to do was bridge this palm, literally. Instead of bridging the pinky that most people try to do, I was like, no, that's not how he does it. So I, not knowing if this was how he actually did it or not, but I ended up bridging my palm there. I guess it gives me more of a feeling where I can come on top of the string and really gain control of that muting. It's almost like a ghost note, kind of, where it's not, sometimes it's a note, but sometimes it's not. But you've got to learn that control between your left and right hand to get it to where it's going to sound like music and not just a bunch of garbled mess. You know, there's a level of letting those notes ring out, and you have to find that pocket, so to speak. So let me go ahead and I'll play it just a little bit slowly so you can get a better idea of what it's going to sound like if you're going to play it slowly before you play it up to speed. And, you know, that's a bad thing to do with your palm, by the way. You don't want to bridge it there and keep it there for a long time, because that's just asking for right hand troubles. And, you know, Kottke himself had a bad case of tendinitis there in the late 80s that nearly ended his career as a musician. So maybe not want to do that. But granted, you know, I think that tendinitis probably came more from him using those finger picks and the thumb pick and being really aggressive on the 12 string with his right hand. But still, you don't want to form any bad habits if you don't have to. I'm just saying this is what I did, and he tried to get me away from that, but I wasn't able to find that Kottke sound with this classical position. So what I found is that if I just bring my hand down a little bit to where I'm not necessarily resting on the body of the guitar, I can still get that chunky, short, poppy sound. It goes without saying that I'm obviously a really big fan of Leo Kottke. I have been for many, many years. In fact, before the new wave of fingerstyle music that hit YouTube around the early days, 2006, 2007, with Andy McKee, Antoine Dufour, and of course Don Ross and stuff. It was really Leo Kottke was the first one that I found on YouTube that just absolutely blew my mind. It just blew my mind that he was doing all this crazy stuff in these standard tunings. I mean, it's standard C sharp tuning, mostly on the 12 string, and the majority of what he's doing just on a standard tuned guitar, just like this. And it really kind of blows my mind that not a lot of other people that I knew growing up and playing fingerstyle guitar, and people that I've met from around the world, good friends of mine that are also fingerstyle musicians, it kind of blows my mind that they never really got into his music as much as I did. I feel like I'm a loner in that sense. And when I was in high school, I was really into Leo Kottke. I was the only person probably ever in the history of my high school that's even heard of this guitar player, which is just insane to me. And I would get on the school in the computer lab. I would go in there and I would try to play all his videos and show all my friends, but they just never showed any interest. And I'm like, how can you watch this guy and not be amazed? Like, I don't know, maybe because I was a musician and some of my friends weren't. They didn't really realize just how difficult and how creative he had to be to make the guitar sound this way in standard tuning. And I've always been blown away by him. I cite my three main influences to have to be probably Leo Kottke, Michael Hedges, and Andy McKee. Leo was always the first one, and he always will be in my mind. He's an amazing musician, and I've learned a lot about the guitar and what it can sound like, what you can do with it, from listening to his many, many albums. He's got a lot of great music, a lot of great technique, and some of the stuff in standard tuning will absolutely blow your mind, but it's so much fun to try to figure it out, try to figure out his patterns. And it's just like he said, I learned that pattern for William Powell years ago, maybe 10 years ago now, but I still remember it because it was such a pain in the ass to figure out. That once I figured it out and played it and did a lot of repetition with it, I started to get it. And a lot of his tunes kind of have that same repeating pattern. So, I'll give you an example. This is William Powell. Here's Blue Dot. And here is Bean Time. So, I mean, they're not exactly the same, but they use pretty much the same chords in just a different way. You alter a little bit in your pattern and you'll find something new. So I just wanted to highlight that tune because it's really one that really just screams Leo Kottke. I don't know of any other musician that can play a simple E major chord with the C sharp in it and make it sound so different. I mean, he's a gem. He's one of a kind. If you haven't checked out Leo Kottke, I highly recommend it. He's a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of the modern fingerstyle stuff, and even like the thumb-picking Merle Travis, Chet Atkins, Jerry Reed kind of stuff. He's his own monster and a fantastic player. So I highly recommend you check out Leo Kottke if you haven't. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, checking out some new techniques. I hope you learned something, and I hope you got a new favorite guitar player out of this. That's the whole point of this fingerstylish thing, is that I want to highlight things that I feel are really important to the history of this style of guitar playing. And a lot of these songs are songs that I learned growing up that helped shape me into the player that I really wanted to be. And I'm constantly still learning now. I've been playing for over 16 years, and I'm still learning new techniques from all these different amazing guitar players. And I hope with this new web series, I hope that you are as well. So thank you very much for checking out FingerStylish. Be sure to join our group on Facebook. Just search for FingerStylish and you'll find an emoji with a cowboy hat on. Be sure to check that out. We help each other out. We try to figure out how to help them with guitar stuff, learning new songs, where to go, all that good stuff. It's just a good bit of fun. So if you're on Facebook, be sure to come join the group. Thank you guys so much for checking out this episode of FingerStylish, and we'll see you guys at the next one.